The desert planet Tarsus 9 stretched endlessly under a pale orange sky. Its winds whispered across the dunes, carrying grains of dust that had not been disturbed for 1,000 years. There was no sound of life, no rivers or plants, only silence and the soft hum of old machines buried deep below the sand. On the horizon, a small human ship stood half-buried, its landing legs sinking into the dust. Inside, the crew worked in quiet focus. Their mission was simple: to map the planet and study any energy readings for future colonization. But what they found that week was far beyond simple science. Captain Mira, the mission leader, stood in front of a holographic screen. Her short dark hair was messy from long hours, and her eyes were fixed on a blinking signal at the corner of the map. It wasn't natural. It pulsed like a heartbeat, slow and deep, coming from almost 2 kilometers beneath the ground. "Are you sure this isn't a sensor error?" Mira asked, glancing at her AI companion. The soft, calm voice of Oren, the ship's artificial intelligence, echoed from the speaker. "Confirmed, Captain. The signal is steady, repeating every 8 seconds. Power level is increasing slightly." Mira turned to her crew, Ravi, the engineer, and Lena, the geologist. Both of them looked as puzzled as she was. "It's not from any human tech," Lena said quietly. "The frequency pattern isn't one we use." Ravi frowned. "Maybe it's a mining drone that got lost centuries ago?" Oren replied before anyone could speak. "Unlikely. The design of the energy pulse is organic, almost like a heartbeat." Mira's eyebrows rose. "A heartbeat?" "Yes, Captain. It matches biological rhythm patterns, but at a scale no living organism could survive." Silence filled the room. Outside, the desert wind howled softly against the metal hull. Mira stepped closer to the hologram and zoomed in on the signal. Beneath the dunes, the scan showed a massive circular structure, smooth, metallic, and perfectly symmetrical. It was buried deep like an ancient tomb. "What are the chances of this being natural?" she asked. "0, Oren said without hesitation. Mira looked at her crew again. "Then we dig." By the next day, the humans had deployed 3 digging drones. They worked tirelessly, slicing through layers of sand and rock. Every few hours, Mira and her team took shifts monitoring the progress from inside the ship. The deeper the drones went, the stronger the signal became. After 20 hours of excavation, the sensors began to detect something strange: a metallic surface carved with patterns that seemed to move when scanned. The moment the first drone touched it, a burst of light filled the monitor. Ravi jumped back from his chair. "What was that?" Oren's voice grew sharper, almost urgent. "Energy spike. The structure is responding to contact." Mira's heart raced. "Pull the drone back." But it was too late. The drone's camera showed the sand falling away, revealing a massive door made of dark silver metal. The surface shimmered like water, even though it was solid. In the center was a symbol, a crown surrounded by stars, half broken and covered in strange writing. Lena stared at it in awe. That's human lettering, old style, pre-expansion era." Mira leaned forward, her breath caught in her throat. "How could human writing be here?" "No colony was ever founded on Tarsus 9. Oren paused before answering. "Records confirm that, Captain. However, this design predates the current Federation timeline by at least 10,000 years. Ravi laughed nervously. "You mean humans were here before we even knew about faster-than-light travel?" Oren simply said, "It appears so." Hours passed as the team worked to analyze the structure. Oren sent microdrones to scan the door's surface, trying to find a way to open it. Every time the scanners touched it, the metal rippled and glowed softly as if alive. Inside the ship, the tension grew heavier. The signal now pulsed faster, like something awakening. Lena finally spoke. "Captain, maybe we should stop. We don't know what's in there." Mira looked out the window toward the dig site, where the door now reflected the twin suns. "We came here to explore. Humanity has always faced the unknown. If we don't open it, someone else will." Ravi looked unsure, but he trusted her judgment. "Then how do we open it?" Oren answered. "The door responds to energy, perhaps to touch or to presence. I can't calculate the exact trigger." Mira grabbed her helmet and turned toward the airlock. "Then we'll find out." The desert wind hit her suit as she stepped onto the sand. The door towered before her, half buried, its surface glowing faintly with each pulse. She reached out her gloved hand and pressed it against the cold metal. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, under her palm, the metal shifted. The symbol in the center began to rotate slowly. like a gear turning after centuries of stillness. The air filled with a deep vibration shaking the ground. "Mira," Ravi shouted through the comms. "The readings are off the charts." Oren's voice cut through the static. "Captain, step back immediately." The rest of his words were lost as a beam of golden light burst from the door, spreading in all directions. The sand lifted into the air as if gravity itself had broken. Mira stumbled backward, shielding her eyes, but she didn't run. The beam faded and silence returned. Where the door had been, there was now an open passage leading down into darkness. From deep below, a soft glow shimmered like stars underwater. Mira's voice trembled slightly as she whispered into her comms. "It's open." The team followed her inside. The passage was smooth, as if carved by machines finer than any human tool. The walls glowed with faint silver veins lighting their path as they descended. After several minutes of walking, they reached a wide chamber, vast and silent, filled with floating crystals that emitted a gentle hum. Lena gasped. "It's beautiful." The crystals floated in perfect circles around a raised platform at the center. They shone with colors that shifted slowly, like memories of rainbows trapped in glass. Ravi took a cautious step forward. "What are these things?" Oren's voice came through their comms. "Analyzing now. Composition is unknown. Wait. Energy signature detected. These are not minerals. They are data containers." "Data?" Mira asked. "Like records?" "Yes. Each crystal is transmitting faint signals like stored consciousness." The word sent chills down her spine. She looked around the chamber, realizing that each glowing crystal was whispering faint sounds like voices too quiet to understand. A feeling of presence filled the room, old and sorrowful. Lena touched one of the crystals gently. It flickered and projected a holographic image, a vast city made of light rising under 3 suns. Then the image faded. Ravi stared, speechless. "These are memories." "Of people?" Mira nodded slowly. "Someone wanted to remember everything. Even after the world ended," Oren spoke again. "Captain, one of the central crystals is responding to your proximity. I advise caution," but Mira was already walking toward it. The largest crystal hovered above the central platform, pulsing with a deep blue light. As she stepped closer, the chamber seemed to hold its breath. The hum of the other crystals grew louder, harmonizing into a low chant. When she reached out her hand, the blue crystal flared, and a beam of light shot into her helmet. She froze as images flooded her mind. A throne room, soldiers, a silver crown, a man standing alone before a sea of stars. Her knees weakened. Ravi ran forward, catching her before she fell. "Mira, are you all right?" She opened her eyes slowly, her voice soft and shaken. He spoke to me." "Who?" She looked up at the crystal. "A king. He said, 'You came back.'" The chamber fell silent again. Only the faint hum of the crystals remained. Oren's voice returned, quiet but tense. "Captain, I am detecting a biometric link. The system is recognizing you as someone of authority." Lena looked around nervously. "You mean it thinks she's part of whatever built this place?" Ravi's hand shook slightly as he adjusted his scanner. "That can't be possible." But as they spoke, the glowing veins on the walls began to spread, lighting up the entire chamber in a storm of color. The ground trembled, and the crystals rose higher, spinning slowly in the air. Mira stared at the sight in awe and fear. "Oren," she said quietly, "what's happening?" Oren paused before replying. "Captain, the structure has awakened." The sound grew deeper, like the heartbeat of the planet itself. And far below, in the heart of the ancient palace, something old stirred, something that had waited silent for 10,000 years. The chamber glowed brighter with every passing second. The air was thick with humming energy, and the floating crystals moved in slow circles above the explorers' heads. The floor vibrated softly, and faint whispers echoed through the vast hall, words in an old language no one could understand. Captain Mira stood in the center, still shaken from what she had seen. The image of the silver-crowned man lingered in her mind. His face had been filled with sorrow, his eyes empty but alive, as if he had been waiting for her for a long time. "Mira," Ravi called out, his voice trembling slightly. "You need to step away from that thing," but Mira didn't move. The large blue crystal above the platform continued to glow, its light gently pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. She could feel it calling to her, not with words, but with emotion, sadness, longing, and something like hope. Oren's voice came through her headset. Captain, your suit sensors are spiking. Neural activity is rising beyond safe limits. Please step back, Mira blinked, her hands shaking. I can hear them, Orrin, the voices. They're trying to say something. Lena's voice was filled with fear. What voices? Mira turned toward her slowly. The crystals. They're alive. In some way. The others exchanged uneasy glances. Ravi walked closer to the platform but kept a safe distance. Alive? You mean these things are conscious? Orrin replied, uncertain. However, energy readings suggest the crystals are storing complex patterns, possibly digital minds or memory imprints. Mira's eyes widened. Then these are not just machines. They're people. The realization hit all of them at once. The floating jewels weren't just decorations. They were fragments of something ancient. Lives, thoughts, and dreams captured long ago. Lena stepped closer to one of the smaller crystals. It flickered at her approach and projected a hologram of a shining city filled with tall white towers and silver rivers. People walked through the streets wearing bright metal robes, smiling and talking. The image was beautiful, but it flickered with static as if breaking apart. Then the projection changed. The city darkened. Explosions of light tore across the sky. The towers fell. The people vanished. The hologram ended abruptly. Lena stepped back, her face pale. It's showing their history. Their fall. Ravi stared at another crystal that floated near him. Whoever they were, they didn't make it. Orrin's voice echoed softly. Correction. They did not vanish entirely. They preserved themselves, in this form. Mira looked around the chamber, her gaze moving from one glowing jewel to the next. An entire civilization trapped in memory, she whispered. Why? What were they running from? No one answered. The only reply came from the steady pulse of the crystals, beating like a slow, sad heart. Mira walked back to the center platform. The blue crystal, the largest one, continued to react to her presence. She felt drawn to it again. Against Orrin's warnings, she reached out and touched it. The moment her fingers brushed the surface, the chamber disappeared around her. She was standing somewhere else. Mira found herself in a great throne hall made of shining silver. Huge pillars rose to a high ceiling filled with lights that looked like stars. A long carpet of blue stretched from the entrance to a grand throne where a man sat, his face hidden by his hands. The air was heavy with sadness. She could hear faint murmurs, advisors, guards, and voices calling out reports. Words formed slowly in her mind, not through her ears, but directly, as if the place itself was speaking to her. Your Majesty, one voice said. The outer colonies have fallen. The enemies have breached the gates. The man on the throne raised his head. His face was calm, but his eyes were hollow. It was the same man Mira had seen before, the fallen king. Prepare the chamber, he said quietly. A guard hesitated. But my king, if we use it, there will be no return. I know, the king replied. Do it. Let their minds live on, even if their bodies cannot. The vision blurred. The sounds faded, and Mira felt herself being pulled backward through light and shadow. She gasped and fell to her knees back in the chamber. Ravi and Lena rushed to her side. Mira, what happened? Ravi asked. She caught her breath, her eyes wide and filled with tears. He showed me everything. They were human. All of them, Ravi blinked. That's impossible. I saw him, she said softly. The king. He was human, just like us. The words hung heavy in the air. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Orrin broke the silence. Captain, if your vision is accurate, that would suggest humans once ruled this world, or even this part of the galaxy, far before current historical records. Lena frowned. But that can't be true. There's no evidence of humans being that old, Orrin replied calmly. There is now. Ravi shook his head. So what are these jewels? Copies of their minds, souls. Mira looked up at the blue crystal still glowing softly. They called it the chamber. He said it would preserve them after death. Lena's voice dropped to a whisper. He trapped them. No, Mira said. He saved them. Or at least he tried to. The team continued to explore the chamber. Every crystal they scanned told a story. A teacher teaching her last class before the fall. A child playing near a river that no longer existed. A soldier promising his family he would return. Each jewel held a memory, and every memory was filled with longing for life. Oren guided them to a side corridor that led deeper underground. The passage was lined with murals carved into the metal walls. They showed humans standing beside alien figures building cities among the stars. But in the final panels, the humans stood alone, surrounded by empty space and broken planets. Lena touched the carvings. They lost everything. Ravi adjusted his scanner. Maybe they lost themselves too. The corridor opened into another chamber, smaller than the first but even more detailed. A central console stood in the middle, covered in dust but still glowing faintly. Mira wiped the surface clean and found ancient symbols etched into it, symbols that looked like an early form of written English. She read the words aloud, slowly. For the heirs of Earth. When we return, we will remember, her breath caught. They were waiting. For us, Oren's voice came softly through the comms. Captain, the energy levels are increasing again. The entire structure is becoming active. Mira straightened. Why now? I cannot tell. However, the system appears to recognize your genetic pattern. It may be responding to your presence. Lena's eyes widened. You mean it thinks she's related to them? Ravi gave a nervous laugh. That's crazy. But Oren's tone stayed serious. Not impossible. If the builders were early humans and their descendants later rebuilt civilization elsewhere, Captain Mira may carry their lineage. Mira stared at her gloved hand, her heart racing. It's calling to me because I share their blood. Suddenly, the blue crystal pulsed again, brighter than before. The walls shook and several smaller crystals flew into the air, spinning around the team. Lights flared across the ceiling and the hum turned into a chorus. Thousands of voices speaking all at once. Mira, Ravi shouted. What's happening? Oren's tone grew urgent. The system is trying to establish a direct link with her neural interface. If connection completes, her mind may merge with the stored data. Mira's body trembled as streams of light touched her helmet. For a moment, she saw countless faces flash before her. Men, women, children, soldiers, scientists, all looking at her, reaching toward her with desperate eyes. She screamed. Stop! Oren overloaded the power in her suit, sending out a pulse of energy that pushed the crystals away. They fell back into place, dimming slightly. Mira collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath. Lena knelt beside her. Mira, are you okay? She nodded weakly. They were trying to speak. I could feel their pain. They don't want to stay trapped. Oren spoke softly now. Captain, I believe this chamber is more than a tomb. It is a machine, one that can rewrite or restore life itself. Ravi looked uneasy. That means it can bring them back? Yes, Oren said, but at a cost. The energy required could destroy everything around it. Mira looked up at the glowing blue crystal, still watching her like an eye. They sacrificed their world to preserve their memories. But now they want to be free. Lena shivered. So what do we do? Mira didn't answer right away. She stood slowly, looking around at the quiet, glittering room, a place of beauty built on sorrow. The jewels hummed softly as if waiting for her choice. We find the truth, she said finally, and if there's a way to free them, we'll do it. Oren's voice came softly with something like concern. Understood, Captain. But be careful. The chamber remembers everything, and it never forgets its king. The light dimmed again as the team prepared to move deeper into the ruins. Behind them, the blue crystal pulsed one last time, and for just a moment, the faint image of the fallen king appeared within it. His eyes filled with regret and hope. His voice whispered faintly, carried on the hum of the jewels. You came back. The chamber had gone quiet again, but the silence was no longer peaceful. It felt alive, like the calm before a storm. The hum of the crystals had faded, yet every few seconds, one of them flickered with a pulse of faint blue light, as if watching the humans move. Captain Mira stood near the center platform, her eyes still on the blue crystal that had spoken to her through visions. Her heart hadn't stopped racing since she heard the voice of the fallen king. She didn't know if it was a message, a memory, or something much deeper. Ravi was pacing near the console, his scanner in hand. Captain, we need to leave. Whatever this place is, it's dangerous. Lena looked torn between fear and wonder. But we can't just go. This is human history, maybe the oldest in existence. Oren's voice came from the intercom in Mira's helmet. I must remind the crew that the structure is still active. Energy levels are rising in the lower sectors. Mira took a slow breath. Oren, can you locate the source? Yes, Captain. The readings point to a core chamber deeper underground. It seems to be the heart of this system. Then that's where we're going, Mira said firmly. Ravi sighed. Of course we are. They followed a narrow tunnel that led away from the main chamber. The walls glowed faintly as they walked, the light following their movement like ripples in water. As they descended, the air grew heavier and colder. Every step echoed like footsteps in a vast empty cathedral. Lena brushed her hand against the metal wall. It feels warm. Like it's breathing, Ravi muttered. Let's hope it doesn't start talking. Mira stayed silent. She couldn't stop thinking about what she had seen in the vision. The king giving his final order, his calm voice hiding deep regret. He hadn't been a tyrant. He had been desperate. When they reached the lower level, the tunnel opened into a hall much larger than the first. The ceiling disappeared into darkness, and in the center stood a massive structure that looked like a throne, carved from crystal and metal. Around it floated hundreds of smaller jewels, all glowing in rhythm, like a field of stars surrounding a single sun. Oren's voice softened. This appears to be the control chamber, Captain. The throne is the central interface. Mira stared at it. A throne? Or a prison? The team moved closer. The air shimmered slightly, bending the light around the throne. Strange symbols glowed on the floor, forming circles of energy that looked like runes. Lena bent down to study them. They looked like circuit patterns mixed with writing. Whoever built this place wasn't just using technology, they were blending it with something else. Something alive, Mira added quietly. Oren confirmed. Correct. The energy source here is not mechanical, it's biological. I am detecting faint brainwave patterns, though very weak. Ravi froze. Brainwaves? You mean something is still alive in there? Mira walked slowly toward the throne. Her steps echoed through the hall. As she approached, the jewels around it began to move, forming slow orbits. The air shimmered again, and a figure began to appear on the throne, faint at first. Like smoke and light, it was the fallen king. He sat tall and still, his silver crown cracked, his armor gleaming faintly through the mist. His eyes opened, bright, blue, and filled with sadness. Lena gasped. It's him, Ravi whispered. Is this a hologram? Oren spoke quietly. Unknown. Energy pattern suggests a conscious projection. Be cautious. Mira took another step. Who are you? She asked. The king turned his head toward her. His voice was deep and calm, echoing as if from a faraway place. You already know, child of Earth. You carry the memory of my blood. Mira's heart skipped a beat. Your blood? You mean I'm your descendant? The king smiled faintly, though it was a sad smile. All who live beneath the stars are my descendants. I was the last of the First Empire, the one that forgot its soul. Ravi whispered to himself. This can't be real. The king's gaze shifted toward him, and even though his body was made of light, his presence felt powerful. Real or not is not the question. The truth remains. Humanity was great once. We built worlds of light, filled the sky with song, and then we lost everything. The room darkened and visions began to form around them, shimmering images floating in the air. They saw massive cities floating above oceans, ships that could travel through suns, and people who looked human but older, wiser. Then the images changed. War, chaos, and destruction. Whole planets burning in silence. The king's voice continued. Our pride was our curse. We wanted perfection, and when it was denied, we turned on each other. In the end, I did what no ruler should ever do. I chose memory over life. Mira felt the pain in his voice like a wound. You preserved them in the jewels, she whispered. Yes, he said. Their bodies could not be saved, but their minds could live. I built this chamber to hold their essence. A world within light where they would not die. Lena's voice trembled. But they're still trapped. The king closed his eyes. I know. I tried to wake them again, but I was too weak. Time turned me into this, a shadow. I waited for someone who could carry my will, someone from the world above. Mira stepped closer, her heart heavy. And that's why you called me. The king nodded slowly. You carry what we lost, hope. You have the strength to finish what I could not. The visions faded. The chamber glowed dimly again. Mira looked at the crystals floating in the air, each one a person, a soul frozen in memory. She felt an ache in her chest. What do you want me to do? She asked softly. The king rose from the throne. His body shimmered, and faint lines of light stretched from his hands to the jewels. "There are two paths," he said. "Free them, and let them fade into peace. Or restore them and risk the stars burning again." Ravi frowned. "What does that mean?" The king looked at him. "The chamber's power is tied to the core of this world. If it releases all souls, the energy will burn through the planet. It will become light once more, beautiful but deadly." Lena's voice was small. "So if we free them, we destroy Tarsus 9. "Yes," the king said. "And if you don't, they remain here forever, dreaming of the lives they lost." Mira stood in silence. The weight of his words pressed down on her. "You're asking me to choose between life and mercy." The king lowered his head. "It was my curse to make that choice once. Now it is yours." The chamber fell quiet again. Oren's voice broke the silence. "Captain, I advise immediate retreat. The structure's stability is decreasing." But Mira didn't move. Her mind was racing. Every instinct told her to leave, but her heart told her she couldn't walk away from those voices, from the people who had once been human like her. She looked at the king again. "You regret it, don't you? Trapping them here." His eyes met hers. "Every day of my endless sleep. Then why wait? Why not end it yourself?" His voice grew softer, almost like a whisper. "Because I am bound to their will. Only one of their blood, one still free, can make that choice." The air trembled again. The jewels began to rise higher, glowing brighter. The king's form flickered, breaking apart like smoke. Mira shouted, "Wait! How do I free them?" His fading voice echoed faintly like the last note of a song. "The heart of the chamber, below the throne. There the truth sleeps. Find it and decide." Then he vanished. The light from the jewels dimmed again. The hall was silent except for the sound of the wind moving through the tunnels. Lena touched Mira's shoulder gently. "Captain, we need to leave before this place collapses." Mira nodded slowly, her face pale but determined. "No, not yet. We find the heart." Ravi looked frustrated. "Mira, you heard him. If we touch the wrong thing, this whole planet could go up in light." She looked at him, calm and firm. "If I walk away, all those souls stay locked forever. I can't let that happen." Oren's voice came quietly. "Captain, if you proceed, I will guide you. But understand, the deeper we go, the less control I will have." "I understand," she said. "Let's move." The team approached the throne. Beneath it, a circular pattern of light formed a doorway leading even deeper below. As they stepped closer, the metal surface shifted, revealing a spiral staircase that descended into pure darkness. Ravi looked uneasy. "This feels like walking into the heart of a star." Mira replied softly, "Maybe that's exactly what it is." One by one, they began to descend, leaving the shining throne behind. Above them, the jewels floated silently once more, humming a song of sorrow and waiting. And somewhere far below, deep in the unseen layers of the chamber, a faint light began to stir. The light of something ancient, powerful and full of both promise and danger. The spiral staircase led the team deeper than they had ever imagined. The air grew cooler with every step, and a faint vibration ran through the walls beneath their hands. Mira's heart pounded with a mix of fear and determination. She could still feel the king's presence hovering like a shadow over them, and every now and then a faint whisper echoed in her mind. "Decide, or they remain." Lena whispered, "Captain, it feels like the chamber itself is alive." Ravi muttered under his breath, "Alive, or waiting." Oren's voice, calm as always, added, "Caution advised. Energy readings suggest we are approaching the core interface. The structure may attempt to merge with your neural network to communicate directly." Mira swallowed hard. "I'm ready. We've come this far." The staircase ended in a massive circular chamber. The ceiling was high and curved, covered with floating crystals that shone like stars in a dark sky. At the center was a large glowing pedestal shaped like a throne. But unlike the one above, this one was filled with moving light. Streams of luminous energy twisted upward, connecting with every crystal in the room. This is the heart," Lena breathed, her voice full of awe. "The king's core." Ravi stepped closer, scanning the glowing streams with his device. "Captain, this energy, it's alive. Not in the biological sense, but it has thought. It's like it can choose." Mira looked at the streams. They weren't just light. They were memories. Faces flickered within the streams. people frozen in moments of joy, sorrow, fear, and love. Each crystal connected to the pedestal seemed to be part of one large consciousness, the preserved souls of the first human empire. They are waiting, Mira said softly. Waiting for someone to free them, Oren's tone grew serious. Captain, be aware. The interface may attempt to assimilate your thoughts. If your mind merges with the chamber, you could lose your own consciousness. Mira nodded. I understand, but we can't leave them trapped here forever. She stepped closer to the pedestal. The luminous streams began to pulse faster as if sensing her presence. Mira reached out her hand. The moment her fingers brushed the energy, a flood of images overtook her mind. She saw vast human cities floating above alien oceans. She saw the fallen king standing alone before the Council of Stars, making a choice that would change everything. She felt the pain of millions of souls, parents losing children, children losing parents, soldiers losing friends. The memories were so vivid that she could almost touch them, feel the heat of the fires that destroyed entire planets, hear the screams, the laughter, the promises that were never kept. Her knees buckled. Ravi rushed forward and held her steady. Captain, are you okay? I can feel them, Mira whispered. Every one of them. The chamber holds them all. Their lives, their mistakes, their hopes. Lena placed a hand on Mira's shoulder. It's overwhelming, but we're here with you. Oren's voice guided her gently. Focus, Captain. The chamber does not seek to harm. It seeks understanding. You must make a choice and free the souls or attempt to restore them. Mira took a deep breath. I need to know what will happen if we try to restore them. Ravi shook his head. Do you really want to risk it? If what Oren said is true, this could destroy the planet. Mira looked at the streams of light, at the faces within them. I know, but freeing them may mean the same risk. I need to decide what's right, not just what's safe. The energy streams around the pedestal responded to her thoughts. They began to shape themselves into a new form. The fallen king appeared, made entirely of light and memories. His eyes, filled with regret and hope, looked directly at Mira. You have come far, his voice echoed in her mind. You carry the will of the living. You are stronger than I ever was. The chamber obeys the heart, not the mind. What will you choose? Mira's chest tightened. I want them free, she said finally. I can't let them remain trapped, no matter the cost. The king's form flickered. And the world above? The people who walk beneath the stars? Can you carry the responsibility of your choice? I will, she said firmly. We live, we survive, but they deserve peace. The energy stream surged, pulsing in response. The other crystals in the room rose higher, spinning faster, sending out ripples of light through the chamber. Mira could feel the immense power concentrated in the pedestal. The chamber itself had awakened fully. Ravi took a step back. Captain, it's happening. The energy. It's spreading. Lena's eyes were wide. It's beautiful and terrifying. Mira focused on the pedestal, on the glowing king and the countless memories flowing through it. She placed both hands on the energy. Her mind merged briefly with the chamber, not fully. Oren's protective code held her consciousness intact. She felt the weight of every soul within the crystal streams. She felt the king's regret, the hopes of children, the sorrow of parents, the courage of soldiers. Every emotion pressed into her like the pull of a tide, and then she acted. Mira thought of freedom, of light, of peace. She imagined the souls breaking free, scattering like stars into the night. She imagined the chamber releasing its power safely into the desert above, spreading warmth instead of destruction. Slowly, the energy streams responded to her vision. They trembled, pulsed, and began to rise from the pedestal, floating upward toward the ceiling. Oren's voice was calm but firm. Captain, the sequence is correct. Energy dispersal is stabilizing. The souls will be freed gradually, reducing strain on the planet. Ravi let out a long breath. You're actually doing it? Lena smiled through tears. They're going home. As the energy lifted, the chamber began to tremble. The walls glowed brighter and a soft wind filled the room. Streams of golden light shot upward from the crystals, traveling like shooting stars into the air. The faces in the light shimmered one last time before dissolving into bright sparks that scattered across the chamber. Mira fell to her knees, exhausted, but a smile appeared on her face. They're free, she whispered. All of them. The fallen king's image appeared again, faint but radiant. You have done what I could not. The living have chosen mercy. You honor them and yourself. Mira looked at the pedestal, now dim and quiet. The chamber seemed calmer, the hum of energy replaced by a soft, peaceful vibration. Rest now, she said softly, thinking of all the souls. Orin spoke quietly. Captain, the release is complete. All traces of consciousness have been successfully liberated. The chamber will collapse gradually as designed. Ravi looked around, awe and relief mixing in his expression. So, it's over? Mira nodded. For them, yes. For us, there's still much to learn. Lena touched Mira's hand gently. You did the right thing. They're at peace because of you. Mira stood slowly. Her suit was warm with the residual energy of the chamber, and her chest still throbbed from the mental strain. We did it together, she said. The living always have a choice, and we chose wisely. The team moved back toward the spiral staircase. The walls, which had once pulsed with energy, were now quiet and dim. The chamber above remained luminous, but the floating crystals had scattered, leaving only faint traces of light in the air. It was as if the souls themselves had ascended, leaving the palace to sleep forever. Ravi looked back at the pedestal. Do you think it will ever wake again? Mira shook her head. Not unless someone else comes looking for power. But I hope they never will, Lena smiled faintly. We were part of history today. Witnesses to something incredible. Orin's voice joined them. Captain, I recommend evacuation. The structural integrity of the lower chambers may weaken over time. Mira nodded. Let's go home. As they ascended the staircase, the pale light of Tarsus IX's twin suns greeted them. The desert stretched endlessly, calm and quiet as if nothing had happened. Yet the air felt lighter, warmer. Something had changed, even if the planet itself seemed untouched. Mira paused and looked down at the sand below. She could still feel the faint echo of the chamber's energy, a reminder that the past could be honored, but only through mercy and courage. Ravi broke the silence. Captain, will anyone believe this? That humans once ruled among the stars? Mira smiled faintly. Some may not. But it doesn't matter. What matters is that we learned the truth, and we did the right thing. Lena reached out and touched Mira's arm, and we brought hope back to them. Mira nodded. Hope and peace, that is enough. Above them, the wind stirred the desert sands gently, as if carrying the released memories across the world. Somewhere far away, the echoes of 1,000 lives shimmered into the sky, free at last. The chamber had ended. The fallen king's regret had been answered. Humanity's first empire, lost to time, had finally been given the mercy it deserved. And for Captain Mira and her crew, the journey had only just begun. The desert of Tarsus IX stretched endlessly beneath the pale glow of its twin suns. Captain Mira and her team climbed the dunes, their suits coated with fine dust, and their hearts still pounding from what they had experienced. Behind them, the ancient chamber lay silent, buried again beneath centuries of sand and stone. Lena finally broke the quiet. Do you think anyone will ever know what we've done here? Mira shook her head, gazing at the horizon. Maybe not. Maybe it's not about anyone knowing. It's about what we chose to do. We gave them peace. That's enough. Ravi glanced at her, a hint of a smile on his face. You're always the idealist, Captain. But you're right. It feels like the world is lighter somehow. Orin, their ever-calm AI companion, added, Captain, sensors indicate residual energy from the chamber is dissipating. The environment is stabilizing. Tarsus IX is safe. Mira's lips pressed into a thin line. Safe, yes. But it wasn't always. And some part of that world long ago needed us to remember them, to honor their choice. The team returned to their ship, climbing aboard as the desert wind swirled around them. Mira stared out at the horizon, still thinking of the fallen king, the jewels and the lives that had been preserved, and finally released. The images of the crystal streams, the memories of the lost empire still lingered in her mind like the echo of a song. Captain, Ravi said, do you ever wonder why they chose to preserve their memories instead of their world? Mira considered his words. Because even in failure, they wanted to be remembered. They knew the world could not survive their mistakes, but they hoped that their lives, their choices, their joys and regrets, might teach someone else something. Maybe even guide someone. Lena nodded slowly. And now they have. We were the ones they waited for. Orin added quietly. Captain, your neural interface shows elevated empathy patterns. The chamber has left traces of its consciousness within your memory. You will carry their experiences forever. Mira closed her eyes. I will, and I will use what I learned wisely. That's what they wanted. As the ship lifted off the sands of Tarsus 9, Mira watched the twin suns cast long shadows across the desert. The planet seemed empty now, quiet, yet beneath its surface the chamber slept. Not as a tomb, but as a memory. A memory that would remain dormant unless disturbed again. Ravi glanced at her. So what now? Mira's eyes softened. Now we return home. We report what we found, of course. But we also remember. The world may never understand what happened here, but we do, and that's what counts. Lena smiled faintly. We became part of history today, Captain. Witnesses to something incredible. Mira nodded. Yes. Witnesses and guardians of a truth that spanned thousands of years. Days passed as the crew journeyed back to the Federation hub. During the trip, Mira often sat alone in the observation deck staring at the stars. She thought of the jewels, the countless souls finally free, and the king who had sacrificed so much for a memory that would last forever. Oren's voice broke her reverie. Captain, analysis suggests that the released energy has influenced the planet's atmosphere. Tarsus 9 may develop conditions capable of supporting life over the next few decades. Mira's lips curved into a small smile. Life, a gift born from what was lost. Ravi walked by and added, It's strange, isn't it? We went to explore and we ended up preserving the legacy of a lost civilization. Yes, Mira said softly, but that's humanity. We reach for the unknown, learn from it, and sometimes we fix what the past left broken. Back at the Federation hub, the crew gave their report. Scientists and historians listened in awe as Mira described the ancient empire, the chamber, and the choice she had made. Most were skeptical, unable to grasp the full scale of what she had witnessed. Yet a few understood. Those who had studied lost civilizations and the whispers of forgotten technology. Mira concluded her report simply, The past is not always gone, and memory can be stronger than time. We must choose wisely when we hold that power, the council murmured in agreement. And though no one could fully comprehend the chamber's depth, a new respect for humanity's potential and responsibility filled the room. Later, Mira sat in her quarters, reflecting. The memories of the fallen king and his people were etched into her mind. Their joys, their sorrows, their hope, and their regret were now part of her. Lena knocked gently on the door. Captain, I know you've been thinking. Mira looked up. I am. I think about what they lost, what we saved, and what we carry now. Lena nodded. Do you regret it? Mira paused. No, I only wonder if we did enough. Could we have restored more? Could we have done more? Lena smiled softly. You did what was right. They are free. That's all anyone could ask for. Mira closed her eyes, feeling the weight lift slightly from her shoulders. The past had been honored. The present had been protected. And the future was full of possibility. Weeks later, Mira returned to her favorite observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before her, and somewhere far away she could imagine the spirits of the first humans moving among them, free at last. The chamber had been more than a tomb. It had been a lesson, a warning, a gift, and a reminder that even the greatest civilizations could fall, but memory and hope could endure. Ravi joined her, leaning on the railing. Do you think we'll ever find another place like that? Mira smiled faintly. Maybe, but I hope we do. The universe has a way of hiding treasures, waiting for those brave enough to seek them. Lena joined them, her eyes reflecting starlight. And when we find it, we'll remember what we learned here. We'll honor them. Mira looked at them both and nodded. We'll honor them, and we'll make sure the living carry their lessons forward. As the ship drifted through space, the memories of the chamber lingered like faint starlight in Mira's mind. She could feel the souls, once trapped, now moving freely, scattered among the stars. Their whispers were no longer cries of sorrow, but gentle echoes of gratitude and hope. The fallen king's memory appeared briefly in her mind, no longer a shadow of regret but a light of peace. Thank you, he whispered softly. Mira smiled, feeling the warmth of his words. Rest well. Your people are free. The ship sailed onward, carrying the crew and the legacy of a lost empire into the future. Humanity had learned from the past, faced the unknown, and chosen mercy over fear. And somewhere in the endless black of space, the first human empire continued to shine, not in bodies or cities but in memory, hope, and light. Captain Mira leaned back in her chair looking out at the stars. She whispered softly, more to herself than anyone else. We carry the past so the future can be stronger. We carry hope so it never dies. The ship hummed softly as it traveled through the galaxy, and the stars, once distant and cold, now seemed to shine with the light of countless lives remembered, honored and free. The story of the Chamber of the Fallen King, drowned in jewels and regret, had finally reached its ending, and humanity had, once again, proven that courage, mercy, and choice could overcome even the deepest sorrow.